Hi and welcome to my March wrap-up, and I'm doing this a little early, but the end of the month has been kind of rough, so I'm not sure if I'm going to read another book, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have time to film this anyways, so I just figured I'd do it early. If I do happen to finish another book, I will just put it in next month's wrap-up. It's not that big of a deal. So in March, I read 13 books and 4 novellas. So the first thing that I read was the Shatter Me series by Tara Mafi. So I read Shatter Me, Destroy Me, Unravel Me, Fracture Me, and Ignite Me, and I have like physical copies of all of it because I have the bind up. And I did do a non-spoiler review and a spoilery discussion video, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. In general, I liked this series. I will, if I remember, I'll link my videos down in the description, but in case you're wondering, I gave Shatter Me 3.5 stars. I gave Destroy Me 4. I gave Unravel Me 4.5. I gave Fracture Me 3. Yeah, 3. And I gave Ignite Me 4.5. Although, even though they have the same rating, I prefer Unravel Me over Ignite Me. So that'd be my favorite in the series. And then I decided to read Hopeless by Colleen Hoover, which is a young adult novel. It's the best one I've read so far, for sure. Made me go buy her other books, so I now own the Slam series. And I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. It's definitely one of my favorite books of the year. I think it's like between this and The Treatment. I can't pick. They're both such good books. I feel like it's really hard to talk about this book without potentially spoiling anything. It's about a girl and she meets a guy and together kind of learn more about both of their pasts, and they're not particularly happy pasts, I guess. It's really intense, but it's a good book, and it does have happiness in it. Like, it's not just this like super depressing thing, and it's really well written, just amazing. And the whole time I just like some things I saw coming and some things I didn't, some things I really didn't want to happen just because they made me sad, but I really enjoyed it, and I think she's an amazing writer for sure. And then I decided to read The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. And what did I give this? I gave this 3.5 stars. I liked this, but I feel like not as much as everybody else. Like, everyone else just raves about it, and I kind of just thought it was okay. I think my biggest issues with it is just, it's not that there's a lack of world building. I think that there was consciously a decision made to limit the information given to the reader, and it just made it really hard for me to understand what was going on sometimes. So you're kind of just thrown into the story, and the main character, Ruby, isn't telling you everything, so you're confused and you don't know what to like expect and things like that. But I mean, I did enjoy it as it continued, as I learned more and more, and I liked a lot of the characters. Ruby I find hard to get to like, just because she doesn't share a lot about herself. Like, she spends more time talking about other characters than she talks about herself, so it's hard for you to connect to her. It's easier to connect to like Liam and Zoo and Chubbs and all of them, but it's definitely an interesting story. And then after that, I did read In Time, which is the novella between The Darkest Minds and Never Fade. And at first I really struggled with it because, again, there's this complete absence of information. But as the story progressed, I really liked it. I thought it was a really intelligent way to handle a novella, and it was different. It's a character that you don't meet in The Darkest Minds that's telling the story, and it's probably the best novella I've ever read. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was amazing. And you really, like, even though you only have like 90 pages or whatever, you really start to care about the character, and then you do meet some other people, but mostly it centers around one character. I really don't want to talk too much about it because I feel like it's so short, everything is a spoiler, but I'm kind of interested to see how what happens in the novella plays into the books because it didn't really play into Never Fade. And then I did take a break from reading that series, and I read Be With Me by Jennifer L. Armentrout, or Jalen. I think I said in my TBR for the month that I was kind of in a mood for new adult, so I decided to read it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, which I believe is the same thing I gave Wait For You. But, and even though a lot of people like this more than Wait For You, I think Wait For You I like a little more. The guy, what was his name? Jace. Some of the things he didn't make sense to me, like character wise, like he wasn't consistent, and oh my gosh, it's been forever since I read this, so I don't even remember. But yeah, just things he did kind of bothered me. A bunch of the surprises didn't surprise me, but I did like a lot of the relationships that are like not romantic in this story. So like between Teresa and her roommate, and then continuing to see Cam and Avery from the first book in here. And I'm definitely excited to read the last one, which does not have a synopsis or anything, so I have no idea who it's about. I'm very curious if it's going to be just a companion like this was, or it's going to be about other characters, or if it's going to go back to Cam and Avery. If you've read it, I feel like it might go back to Cam and Avery, especially since it's called Stay With Me. I don't know. But there were some things that were unresolved in here with those two that I'm curious about. Then I read The Marriage Bargain by Jennifer Probst, I think. If that's not right, I'll write it down or something. I thought it was new adult, but it's not. It's just a romance novel. It's about a girl, or a woman, and she needs to get married. Well, she needs money, so she needs, like, a marriage might be the way to do this. And then there's this guy, and in order to inherit his money, he needs to get married, so they end up getting married. The whole time I was reading it, Sarah Wendell from Smart Bitches Trashy Books and the DBSA podcast talks about this kind of thing a lot, how she wishes she could practice law in Romance-landia, where, like, you can mandate in a will that somebody has to get married because it's not legal. But it's something that's used a lot in romance novels, so I just thought that was so funny. And all get married, and they knew each other as children and everything. And I don't know, the whole book, I gave 2 stars. Did I say that? It felt really contrived, and I like formulaic stories. I want to do a series where I talk about romance, which is particularly formulaic genre. And in that series, I want to talk about what formulaic means to me and how that can be really good when done well, which this book was not. And I felt like there were a lot of parts where things could have been better and could have been, like, more developed and gone into more, but for whatever reason those things were skipped over. That's why I only got 2 stars, and I'm glad I didn't buy it. I got it from the library, and I don't think I'll be reading anything else by that author. And then I read Making Faces by Amy Harmon, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. It was amazing. People have been talking about it a lot lately, and it was very good. I read this on my Nook. It was a really, really good book. It's super emotional. It's a new adult novel, but I feel like a lot of times new adult is like romance for slightly younger ages, and this story had a romance in it, but to me the romance was almost a secondary plot line. It was more about the relationship between 3 characters and their friendship and their growth and how they each affected one another and how they all had things to work through and deal with. And it really, really was. I highly recommend it. It's super sad, but it's a really good book, and although I will probably never read it again, I'm just not sure I can ever go there again emotionally. That book kind of put me in like a weird headspace. I didn't know what to read next, and so I just decided to pick up Never Fade, so the second book in the Darkest Mind series, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I did like it better than the Darkest Minds, but it actually took me a while to really get into this. I'm not sure if I just wasn't in the right like headspace to read it, or if it really was the book. It started differently than I expected. I thought it was going to pick up right where the Darkest Minds left off, but it didn't. And you kind of meet a whole bunch of new people, so it's almost like the first book again. Like, normally in a series you're picking up with characters you know, and maybe one or two new characters show up, but this is like a whole crap ton of new people. But as it continued, I really liked it. There's some characters I really grew to like in here, but I did have some issues with it. Ruby sometimes would get a little annoying, and then there was just something lacking. Like, there was a storyline from the first book that I feel like needed to be addressed better, and it wasn't. So, but I am excited to read the last one whenever it comes out, because as far as I know it does not have a release date. Then I read Willow by Julia Hoban, and what did I give this? I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. This is a book about a girl who accidentally kills her parents, and in an effort to deal with that, she cuts herself. And it was a super intense book. I mean, it sounds intense, and it was. It was really good. There were some things that bothered me, particularly towards the end. There was a decision she made that I thought was not the right decision, and I don't think the author should have put that in there, but she did. It's a nice blend of like happy hopefulness and still sad depressing. And one thing I appreciate is that this book was told in third person. It was like limited third person, so you stick with Willow, who's the main character, but you're not directly in her head, which I think was really nice. I think if I had been in her head, it would have been way too intense. But I read The Edge of Never by J.A. Redmersky, which is another new adult novel, and I gave this 3.5 stars, and it's one of those generic synopsis. It's about a girl, and she like leaves home spontaneously, and she meets a guy, and it's all about her growth and everything. And it was a really slow going book, really slow. It's like if I had gotten it from the library, I probably would have DNF'd it, but because I bought it on my Nook, I was gonna finish it, and I'm glad I did. I thought it definitely got better as it went on. I really liked the interactions between the two main characters, Cameron and Andrew, like when they were just interacting with each other, like verbally, like having conversations and friendships. But the like sexual aspects of it, I didn't like as much. It didn't make as much sense to me, like in with their characters, as when they were just talking with each other. And then the like big surprise thing, I didn't see coming, that's for sure, and I'm not 100% sure how I felt about it. And then the big surprise that came after the big surprise really upset me. So it's kind of hard to explain what I don't like about this without spoiling it, but mostly a bunch of stuff at the end bothered me. But I am curious to read the sequel. Probably not anytime soon. I'll probably just get it on my Nook as well and just wait to see if it goes on sale or something. I read, well, really this is a reread for me, The Duke is Mine by Eloisa James, although I remembered nothing about this, so it was kind of like reading it for the first time. And this I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I'm kind of hit or miss with Eloisa James. When I like her books, I love them, but a lot of times, it's probably like a 40-60 split, like 40 love, 60 This is The Princess and the Pea. Enjoy it. It's an interesting story. The characters are really nice. The one good thing about Eloisa James is she writes relationships between women a lot and very well. Like, a lot of romance novels are just about the guy and the girl and how they're gonna fall in love and get together. But a lot of Eloisa James's books involve friendships between women, or the sister relationship between them, or the mother-daughter relationship, and she does that really well. And the main character in here, Olivia, she has a sister, Georgie, and I really like their relationship. It's not always great, but I like that the way they interact with each other, and they really feel like sisters. My problem with this book is it's kind of a cheating book. I'm not a big fan of cheating books. If I know a book has cheating in it, I usually won't read it. It just makes it hard for me to get invested in their romance when I know that's what happens. So that's why I get suggestions. I read, it's kind of hard to explain what this is, but Julia Quinn is another romance novelist, and she has a series, probably her most popular series, and it's The Bridgerton. So it's a series of 8 books, and it's about, each book is about one sibling in this family. And she then wrote what are called second epilogues. So like each book has an epilogue. That's very standard for a romance. She wrote a second epilogue for each of them, and oh my gosh, a while ago, like a year or two ago, I don't know if they made a physical copy, but they definitely sold them as like one big ebook where you could just buy them in a chunk. So that's what I did. So I have them all, and I read a few, and so I decided to read the one for the, I think it's the third book. I'm pretty sure it's the third book, which is called An Offer from a Gentleman. So I read the second epilogue for that, and it's basically about the girl from the book, her sister, and her finding love or whatever. And that story, that part was cute. I give it 3.5 stars. That part was cute, but I really liked just seeing the guy and the girl from that book like married and happy. Their story was really rough going, so it was nice to just see them as a couple and everything. And they're pretty short. They're not super intense novellas or anything. And then I actually just finished City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare, and I feel like my tabs explain my feelings on this book. Well, you can't really say. Like, I didn't put any until like kind of far in, and then there was a huge gap still, and then they just like exploded towards the end of the book. This was another thing I felt was kind of slow, but kind of like Never Fade. I think it might have been me, like I wasn't really in the right place for this, but as I got into it, I cared about the story more and everything. I gave it 4.5 stars. I did really enjoy it. I'm definitely glad that I waited to read them and didn't have to deal with cliffhangers and a bunch of things I didn't see coming, which is always good. Cassandra Clare usually surprises me though. A lot of Simon in this book, and at the beginning I started to not like him again, but then I came around. I just want Jace and Clary to be happy. Like, even for a little while, because they just have like a few moments of happiness. That's just all I want, really, all I want. Oh, and then I did read the allotment for Stone of Tears this month by Terry Goodkind, and I read actually a little more than there were a couple of times in between these books where I was like, I really don't want to know what I want to read next. I'll read Stone of Tears, but I'm definitely enjoying it. There's a lot of things happening right now that didn't happen in the show, which is interesting, although there is no Kari yet, and fairly certain she shows up in this book. So I'd like to know when she's gonna show up, because I like her. But yes, so those are the books that I read in the month of March. Thanks for watching. Bye!